What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the world's okayest physical therapist podcast. Today, we're doing a special episode, one that is going to be pretty important for everyone to understand. This is one of those labyrinthine Byzantine healthcare system podcasts that need to be recorded, that's going to be dry, that's going to be a little bit boring, but it has massive ramifications for the healthcare industry. So I really need you guys to like this, to comment on this, to share this with everyone that you know, because this is a conversation that any American healthcare recipient should know. And I'm going to definitely give you guys some of my personal insight and some of my personal bias on why this happens, and it's going to upset people of my own industry. I'm definitely going to step on some people's toes with this one. And I don't care because we have to be honest about why it happened and likely how it happened. And I could be wrong. I'm sure people will let me know in the comments from their opinion, but I'm just going to speak plainly and as simply as possible. I'm going to try and make this as unconvoluted as possible. But today's topic is physical therapy still a professional degree? What does the Department of Education's rule mean for us? So, instead of talking about exercise, instead of talking about anatomy, instead of talking about how to get better, all those sorts of things, today we're going to be talking about money policy and the future of physical therapy. Because the U.S. Department of Education just proposed redefining what accounts as a professional degree, which impacts loans, which will also impact how colleges decide to go forward providing these degrees. So as a result of this, degrees like physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech language pathology, nursing, and others are going to likely lose access to the same level of funding from federal student loans that we once had, that is similar to that as like what doctors of osteopathic medicine and medical doctors have. And it's going to reshape what that means. It's going to have massive ramifications. So we're going to talk about what's going on, how did this change, what does it mean for students, what does it mean for clinicians, what does it mean for patients? So let's dive right into it. In 2025, the Department of Education, under the new law, the One Big Beautiful Act, which is already going to set people off, but bear with me, try and suppress those feelings of whatever you feel one way or the other. It reevaluated what graduate level programs are classified as professional degrees, and under the new draft rules, only a short list of degrees remain professional. That includes medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, law, optometry, chiropractors, and a few others. Yep, sorry, my bias is already showing. However, and this is where the shock hit many people, the draft excluded any sort of like master's and doctorate programs from the following: doctorate of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech language pathology, audiology, nursing, and physician's assistants. That's right. The person that you usually see most when you go into the doctor's office, the physician assistant, is one of the people that's being impacted by this. If this stands, if this passes, if this continues forward, students entering into those programs after July 1st, 2026 will face much lower federal loan caps. $20,000 a year and a lifetime cap of $100,000 compared to what it used to be, which was $50,000 a year and $200,000 lifetime allowed for the professional degrees. The controversial part is that the DOE says that this matches its historic definition. Now, critics argue it ignores the licensure requirements, clinical training, and societal importance of these professions. So, reiterating here to be clear, if you apply to any of those programs, PT, OT, SLP, audiology, anything like that, after July 2026, the financial landscape is you are not going to get the aid that everybody else got. Now, again, pause for a moment, really clear, open and transparent. I used my GI Bill to go to school, going to a yellow ribbon program. That means I paid nothing out of pocket for my degree. I did have to pay for where I lived. I did have to pay for my food, but I did not have to pay for my degree. I did my 4 years in the military. I used my GI Bill. I paid for it using that. So open transparency, that's how I did it. So I don't have student loans from graduate school. A lot of people do. I do not. This is not something that, this is why I can speak so candidly on this, I believe, because I'm not as impacted by this. I went in a completely different route knowing full well that, serving 4 years of my life and active and then 4 years inactive, ready reserve would allow me to have the funds to go back to school. So just laying all my cards on the table, I am not someone who has $200,000 in debt and it's going to be as emotionally perturbed by this. So who's affected by this? It's not just PTs. Like I said, it's occupational therapy, speech language pathology, audiology, nursing, physician's assistant, public health, social work, counseling, um, and so on. Now, this is going to have really big implications for the workforce. We're going to be talking about, like, this could lead to healthcare shortages. It's going to definitely lead to reduced access to therapy and rehab services. But real quick, I just want to be super candid with you guys again. Let me just answer this question. How many physical therapists leave the field per year? I just want to see what this is. Between 5 and 10% of physical therapists leave the profession every year. So you're having a rate of somewhere between 5 and 10% of people that are leaving. That's massive, right? That's, imagine every year 10% of your workforce leaving and having me replenished by another 10%. Part of the reason why this is going to be so big for physical therapy, and I can't talk about OT and speech language pathology, nursing, physician's assistant. Part of the reason this is going to be so big for physical therapy is because up to 10% of your force is leaving every year, and it's being replenished by a bunch of new grads coming in who are clear-eyed, bushy-tailed, and they are motivated by the idea that they're going to help everybody, and they're going to end up going into some of the most demanding physical therapy mill. We're all about the numbers. We're all about making money. We don't actually give the patients the best care. I hate to say that, but it's true. There's definitely clinics out there like this. They're going to be going into those environments. They're going to get burned out after a year or two, and they're going to immediately say, this was a waste of my time. This is a waste of my money. I'm going to switch to a different profession. I'm being super transparent. Physical therapy deals with this all the time. There's a distinct subculture of people saying it was a waste of money and that this profession sucked the life out of them and that they want their money back and they're going to change their degree and do something else. Just being fully transparent. That's already happening in physical therapy. And I know for a fact that it's also happening with medical doctors and doctors of osteopathic medicine. They're getting burned out at the same rate. I think about the same. Let me check. I want to make sure I'm giving you guys the best information. Let's do doctor of osteopathic medicine. Doctors of osteopathic medicine leaving the profession per year. It's not tracked. Okay. Oh, here we go. A report last indicated that 35.7% of doctors expressed moderate to high level of interest of leaving their current job within 2 years. So things aren't good. Things are not good, right? There's a high level of burnout in the healthcare system, and there's a high rate of turnover. So if you restrict the funds to the people that are willing to come into this, to replace that 10% that's leaving every year, you're going to have even fewer people in the system. Physical therapy is going to drastically shrink. The number of clinics that are going to exist, way fewer, right? There's all sorts of financial ramifications we can allude to about that in terms of what insurance is going to do about that, what co-pays will look like, all that things. On the one hand, there's people making the argument this is necessary because we have an over-bloated loan system anyway, that colleges are charging people too much money for degrees that they shouldn't be charging that much money for. All of this enters into the equation. All this is worthwhile questions. But the bottom line is, to you as a patient, this means less PTs, less PT clinics, harder to get in to be seen, longer wait times, right? That's what this is going to lead to unless the colleges, unless the American Physical Therapy Association come to some sort of degree to bring physical therapy back to being just a bachelor's degree. Because back in the late 90s and early thousands, the American Physical Therapy Association decided that they wanted to make this a doctorate level program. There's a whole bunch of, again, we're not going to dive down all those rabbit trails, but the truth is that's what they decided to do, and they did it, and the colleges accommodated them and said, we will make it that way, but we're going to make it priced that way. When I was a student in the clinical rotations, I had a clinical instructor who only had a bachelor's degree because he was grandfathered in because he had his degrees before the late 90s and early thousands. He's he is capable, he's knowledgeable, he works 7 days a week. He was a madman, but he got his bachelor's degree and he was a physical therapist that still was able to practice. I was coming in as a doctor of physical therapist, and I mean, I feel like I know more about anatomy, physiology, lifespan stuff than he does. But at the end of the day, he's out here getting paid more than I am as someone who has a bachelor's degree, but he has like 40 years of experience, right? That's something that exists right now. It might not exist very much longer, but it is. So there is the possibility that if they were like, we're going to go back to doing a bachelor program, there's a historical precedence for it, and they did it for many years. It was only in the thousands. It was only about 20, oh goodness, now 24, 25 years ago that they made the switch. So let's move on. What's the consequences for students in the workforce? Well, many students are going to face larger tuition to aid gaps. Fully disclosure to you guys again, super transparent. Most of the people I went to school with got out and got hired for making $80,000 a year. Most of them had over $200,000 in loans. You can do the math. $80,000 a year as a doctor of physical therapy is going to be less than doctors of osteopathic medicine. It'll be less than most physicians' assistants. And you can imagine how hard it is to try and buy a home, get a car, and pay off your loans. It's not easy. This is going to worsen the student debt if they decide to keep it at a doctorate level, or even if they bring it down to a master's level. It's going to be a problem. This gap is going to be difficult, and if the colleges try to keep it at this level, if the American Physical Therapy Association tries to keep it at this level, then you're going to have issues. Workforce. With fewer PTs and OTs, so on, entering into the field, and with the high rate of turnover we already have, like I said, it's going to be a strain on these services. It's going to lead to restriction in access to care. It's going to put pressure on existing clinicians to carry more patients or leave the field. I'm not sure about that. You know, there's only so many patients you can actually see. Like, to say that physical therapists are going to have to see even more. Well, if you're fully booked for the week, you're fully booked for the week. You know, if you can only see one patient, let's just do the easy math, one patient per hour for a 40-hour work week, you're only seeing 40. They can't make you see more than that if that's what your business model is. Or if you work in the federal system, they definitely can, because they can change the rules if they want to. But I don't see how this is going to afford. You will see more patients, but the truth is, in order to see more patients, you're going to have to see them all less frequently, and that could be a problem. It could lead to an explosion in physical therapy assistants again, because they just need more people that are assistants but not physical therapists to help see everybody that needs to be seen. But because of this decreased pipeline, you're going to have long-term shortages. You're going to have possible rise in private loan dependence, which actually was kind of already happening anyway. A lot of physical therapy clinics would offer to pay you to go to physical therapy school as long as you had a contract with going to them and working for them for 4 to 8 years in a specific location. So what's the official status? All this is the what could happen, what is kind of happening, where are things trending. But what's happening right now, it's a proposed rule. The Department of Education published a notice of proposed rulemaking to begin this, but they haven't officially gone through with it. Now, what does that mean? It means all the lobbying groups for PT, OT, speech language pathology, nursing, all of them are beginning to mobilize. They're writing Congress. They're going to fundraise. They're going to ask for money. You're going to probably see a lot of campaigns on YouTube or in your local physical therapy clinic or hospital saying, help us save our professions. We are professionals. You're going to see a lot of that sort of, were you once in a clinic where you got help from someone who helped you get better? We need your help. And if you help us, we can remain professional. Help us say no to the one beautiful bill, blah, 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 blah. That's what's going to happen. But so let's talk about how we got here. We got here because PT, OT, speech language pathology, nursing, physician's assistants, they all have some of the worst lobbying ever. When I was a part of the APTA as a student volunteer, they had to fire their lobbyists, because every lobbying battle we went into, we would lose. The physical therapists have to share certain codes now that were supposed to be meant for physical therapists only. We have to share those now with athletic trainers who have access to it and can bill like a physical therapist. You notice physical therapists don't get access to using codes that doctors of osteopathic medicine and MDs do. We aren't lobbying to try and take their codes. We aren't lobbying to do their job, but we have people gunning for our position saying they can do it just as good as we do, if not better, and cheaper. And our own APTA lobbying group can't protect us from that. So they fired the guy. And then what happened after they fired the guy? They hired someone new. Well, guess what this new guy did? Failed to protect us from this as well. The lobbying groups are the problem here, and that's the issue that everybody seems to not really grasp. Everybody seems to think that this is political and that people are trying to have it out for the healthcare providers, or this is just what we have to expect from group X, Y, or Z. As a student, for 4 months, I tried to make a I tried to make a poster for the American Physical Therapy Association. 4 months. And every single time I submitted it, I had to go back in and change one punctuation mark, or I had to try and make the language more generalized or more, what's the word they used? They were more welcoming. They wanted to make it more generalized, more easy to understand. While we were going through that process, the group that I was trying to write the poster for changed their name 3 times. Every single time I had to go back into the poster, change the name, and resubmit it for approval, and it got denied because they want me to go in and change grammar or to change synonyms. Or after 4 months, me and my friend who were working on this as both the APTA volunteer representatives gave up because the bureaucratic nightmare of trying to publish a single poster for recruiting was too difficult for this organization to complete. Talk to anybody. They're not thrilled with the APTA. And the fact that the lobbying group can't even do their job isn't shocking to anyone. And I imagine for occupational therapy, speech language pathologists, nursing, physician's assistants, they'll probably tell you the same thing. They're like, we probably don't have the best lobbying group. But you know who does? The chiropractors, because they're the ones that continue to get the funding. And at every turn, chiropractors and athletic trainers continue to chip away at PTs. This is what I was alluding to many episodes ago when I was like, hey, keep in mind, I'm being professional here. Here's what some PTs say about ATs. Here's what ATs say about PTs. Here what cops. This is why a lot of this happens, because when it comes to the federal level, PTs do not know how to lobby. We are terrible at it. Our own organization is so bureaucratic and dysfunctional that we can't publish a poster, let alone go and lobby the correct people to make a good argument why we should stay as a professional. It's so frustrating when people take this as like, oh, well, this is clearly politically motivated. No, we're just stupid. We don't know how to lobby. This whole podcast alone makes me want to start a political action committee just to outdo the APTA and say I can do more with less. Okay. So what does this mean for you as a clinician, student, or listener? What can you do? Right? Well, here's some solid steps you can take. You can stay informed by listening to podcasts like this. You can follow updates from the national associations. You can submit public comments. You can write your congressmen. You can write your senators. I guess that would go for both. You can explore alternative funding if you're a student, like scholarships, state loan forgiveness, private grants, employer support. A lot of times, if you go to some of these physical therapy clinics that are a little bit more corporate, they're going to have the ability saying, hey, we will pay for you to go to school if you promise to work for us for a period of time, kind of like what happened with me in the military. But instead of you giving 4 years of your life in service to the military, maybe you give 6 years in service to these guys and they pay off your loans. Not a bad gig. And the last thing you can do is advocate for awareness in the workforce and impact and support students and trainees. That one, I mean, students are going to be so burned out already. This is just going to feel like another nail in the coffin for them in terms of them trying to study for their boards and stuff. So, I mean, just checking in somebody that you know at school is going to be helpful. But knowing and watching what happens to your local physical therapy clinics, if you're trying to get in there yourself, don't be surprised if they try and push you to a reduced frequency if this goes through. If you're supposed to be coming in twice a week, don't be surprised if you get cut down to 1 time a week. It's just going to be how they're going to try and manage to increase people. And then don't be surprised too if telehealth takes off and if nobody actually comes to see you at home and do home health, and they instead mail you a tablet and say, set your tablet up, and someone's going to watch you do exercises. Don't be surprised if that happens too, because that's definitely a cost cutting measure that a lot of different companies I've seen are taking a look at doing, is just outsourcing and saying, fine, we'll watch you do PT at home and we'll bill it as telehealth, because that's the only way we can really make this happen. So, whew, sorry for the rant there in the middle, but I hope you guys found this passionate, educational, informative, and beneficial. This is a huge issue, and I have really strong feelings about how bad the physical therapy profession has handled not just this, but everything that has led up to this. And it's easy to be frustrated, and I get that I haven't provided a single solution, but in the shock of being told that you're not going to be a professional degree anymore if this goes through, and the ramifications of what that means for insurance and billing and who knows what else, because now different companies and different governing bodies get to play around with the degree of professional. Um, it's a little bit frustrating. I can't say it's surprising, but I just wanted to give you guys a raw look at one of the reasons why I think it's happening, and also see my genuine reaction. Um, a lot of times I like to do these polished podcasts so you guys can see, oh, okay, here's what we're talking about, blah blah blah. And it's kind of dry, but for this, I wanted to give you guys like the unfiltered, raw. Here's a physical therapist with my background coming in and approaching this and trying to wrap my mind around it. Again, this is not all my thoughts. This is just my raw reaction. I want to get out that this will probably be a multi-part series as I delve more into what this means. So one of the things I want to close out with here is this isn't just a funding change. Yes, I know I ranted for quite a while. It's a potential turning point for multiple fields that it will affect millions of people. Um, it matters a lot. And that's why I'm so passionate about it and so frustrated about it. So please don't forget to like, comment, and share. Seriously, share this with people. Get it out. Stay engaged. Stay informed. This is going to impact the country. This is going to impact just about everybody. And I'm going to try and stay on top of this and try and share more episodes so we can all plan and stay ahead of it. But everybody, please stay healthy, stay fit, and stay awesome. And I will catch you all in the next episode.